The blade presses against your windpipe. Cold steel. The guard holding it asks if you have any last words. You almost laugh. Behind you, 3 nobles hit the marble floor. Foam bubbles from their lips like bad soap. They spent 2 hours toasting their health tonight. You'd already decided how their evening would end before the first course arrived. The guard thinks he's executing a murderer. He's right, but he doesn't understand the irony yet. You didn't poison those nobles because you lost control. You poisoned them because the king ordered it. And now the king's decided you know too much. The man who made you indispensable just made you disposable. Last words? As if confessing now would change anything. This is where your story stops. To understand how a village healer became the crown's most valuable killer, and why that made you too dangerous to keep alive, we need to rewind to the beginning. You weren't born to this. 5 years ago, you ground herbs in a stone cottage outside Paris. Remedies for farmers with fever. Salves for children with coughs. Basic work. Honest work. Boring as hell. Then you got curious about the wrong plants. Most healers stuck to chamomile and mint. Safe choices. You started testing nightshade and foxglove. You told yourself it was research. Understanding what kills helps you understand what heals. That's what you said when the magistrate's wife came to your shop complaining of headaches. She was healthy that morning, laughing, gossiping about the baker's daughter. By sunset, she was convulsing in her bed. The official record called it sudden illness. The timing made people nervous. You found it fascinating. The king's men showed up 3 days later. Not with chains, with an offer. They needed problems solved quietly. Enemies who couldn't be executed publicly without creating diplomatic disasters. Your skills could serve France better than treating peasant ailments. They made it sound patriotic. You made it sound expensive. Congratulations! You're now officially employed. The job title is Solution. The benefits package is Don't Ask Questions. Your first assignment was a test. They walked you into a stone chamber beneath the palace. A thief sat chained to the wall, already condemned for stealing from the royal treasury. Your job was simple. Demonstrate your methods on someone whose death was already guaranteed. You mixed arsenic into wine, just enough to mimic stomach sickness. The prisoner drank willingly, thinking it was mercy compared to hanging. He thanked you before the cramp started. Polite guy. Within an hour, he was writhing on the floor, clutching his belly as the poison burned through his organs. The guards watched like they were studying a new fencing technique. You explained the progression while he died. First, the cramps, then the vomiting, finally, the convulsions as everything shuts down. Clinical, professional, exactly what they wanted to see. When it was over, the captain shook your hand. You passed the audition. Congratulations, you've been promoted from test subject to active asset. The raise is 0 gold. The job security is, as long as you're useful. They moved you that night. A small room in the servants' quarters. Your new laboratory was a converted wine cellar, lined with glass bottles and ceramic jars. They gave you everything. Rare minerals from the Orient, exotic plants from the New World. Access to the palace library's alchemical texts. Better than Christmas. You learned fast. Killing wasn't about the poison. It was about the method. Arsenic for slow deaths that looked like illness. Nightshade for sudden collapses that resembled heart failure. Mercury for enemies the king truly hated. It caused madness before death, made the victim look insane. That one was popular. The hardest part wasn't the chemistry. It was seeing targets as problems instead of people. The king's enemies weren't individuals with families. They were obstacles to French stability. Your poisons weren't murder weapons. They were tools of statecraft. Once you started thinking like that, the work got easier. Within a month, You perfected your signature technique, a powder that dissolves completely in wine. Tasteless, odorless, it would activate exactly 6 hours after consumption. Long enough for the victim to go home, kiss their children goodnight, and die peacefully in their sleep. The perfect political assassination, disguised as natural death. Your reputation spread through the palace's shadow network. The king's confessor whispered your name to trusted advisors. The queen's ladies spoke of you in code during afternoon tea. You became known as the Solution. Not the most creative nickname, but accurate. But perfection has a price, and your price was about to get very, very expensive. Your job description fit on one line. Make the king's enemies disappear without leaving evidence. No public executions that create martyrs. No obvious murders that spark investigations. Just quiet, natural deaths that happen to occur at politically convenient moments. Yes, technically this is Louis XIV's court, not early medieval. But when everyone's hiring fortune tellers and poisoners, it feels medieval enough. The palace gave you everything you needed. Your laboratory expanded. You got a private garden for cultivating deadly plants, castor beans for ricin, angel's trumpet for scopolamine, deathcap mushrooms that you dried and ground into powder so fine it could be dusted onto playing cards. You became a botanist, a chemist, an artist, really. Your methods evolved past amateur work. Anyone could slip arsenic into wine. That's what desperate people did. Clumsy, obvious. You developed techniques that made victims complicit in their own deaths. Your masterpiece was the devotional powder. Mercury and nightshade, ground so fine it was invisible. You'd arrive at morning mass early, before the priest prepared communion wine, and dust the rim of specific chalices with a thin layer. The victim drank their death, while receiving what they believed was Christ's blood. The precision was beautiful. You could target exactly who you wanted, while leaving everyone else untouched. The Duke of Orléans always chose the silver chalice on the left. The Countess of Maintenon preferred the golden cup with a jeweled base. You memorized their habits and used their predictability against them. When the Duke collapsed during the blessing, foam spilling from his mouth, the priest crossed himself and whispered about divine judgment. He wrote, "Act of God" in the record. Technically, he died of natural causes. Naturally because you poisoned him. You'd correct him, but blasphemy is also a crime. The priest never suspected, because you gave him no reason to. You tithed generously. You confessed regularly, though never the sins that mattered. You even donated money for new chalices when the old ones became too associated with mysterious deaths. He blessed you for your generosity. The Act of God classification became your favourite part. Not because it protected you, because it was technically accurate. You were doing God's work, just not the kind the priest had in mind. Your reputation at court grew with each success. Nobles approached you in shadowed alcoves of the palace gardens, speaking in whispers about their own problems. A business rival gaining too much influence. A former lover threatening to reveal secrets. A creditor refusing to forgive debts. But invisibility only works until someone starts looking in the right direction. Quick pause. You've heard enough at this point to judge. If you were in Versailles right now, are you the one slipping poison or the one drinking it? Drop poisoner or cup in the comments. I need to know what room I'm in. You learned fast. At Versailles, everyone falls into one of two categories: clients or witnesses. The difference is simple. Clients pay you to solve their problems. Witnesses pay the king to solve theirs. The marquis approaching you in the rose garden hasn't decided which category he wants. Yet. The economics were straightforward. A simple death that looked natural cost 50 gold pieces. A death timed to specific political events cost 100. A death that needed to appear as divine judgment cost 200. Your most expensive service was the mercy killing. A poison so slow and gentle, the victim simply fell asleep forever. 300 gold pieces. Popular among nobles who wanted to spare their enemies unnecessary suffering. You appreciated the irony. Your success created problems. As convenient deaths piled up around Versailles, investigators started looking for patterns. The king's spy master asked uncomfortable questions. Palace physicians examined bodies more carefully. But paranoia spreads faster than investigation. Soon, everyone suspected. Everyone. Their food tasters, their servants, their own family members. But suspicion without evidence only created chaos. Accusations flew in every direction, except yours. The king's investigators chased shadows, while you continued working in plain sight. No one suspected the quiet servant who brought fresh flowers to the chapel each morning and helped the priest prepare for Mass. You'd become invisible in plain sight, the perfect position for a professional killer. The gardens of Versailles were perfect for business meetings. The maze of hedges provided privacy. The fountain's splash marked whispered conversations. The constant flow of courtiers made any encounter look like casual socializing. You learned to conduct your most dangerous negotiations while appearing to admire roses. The Marquis de Montespan approached you on a Tuesday morning, silk shoes crunching on gravel. He spoke in careful court language, never using direct words. He had a problem, requiring a delicate solution. A business rival was gaining influence with the king's economic advisors. Perhaps this rival might suffer from the same sudden illness that recently claimed the Duke of Orleans. You quoted your standard rate for a natural-looking death, 100 gold pieces, payable in advance. The timeline would depend on the target's habits and opportunities. The Marquis agreed without negotiating, which told you everything about his desperation. Smart clients always haggled. Desperate ones just paid. His shipping business was failing. His debts were mounting. His rival's success made him look incompetent to the king. He couldn't afford to refuse your price, which meant he couldn't afford to betray you later. The rival died of natural causes, the natural cause being your arsenic in his evening wine. He'd just made his choice. Client, not witness. Economics made better insurance than loyalty. Your ruthless pricing did something unexpected. It made you untouchable. Clients who'd paid 300 gold pieces for a mercy killing weren't going to risk exposure by betraying you. The cost of your services became insurance against your own murder. But insurance only works until the threat changes. Once the king decided you were a threat instead of a tool, your client's fear of you became irrelevant. They'd already paid for your silence. Now they'd pay for your death. And this time, the king was offering a better deal than you ever could. Their survival in exchange for your confession. Your client base expanded as word spread through noble circles. A countess wanted her husband's mistress to suffer a tragic accident. She suffered a tragic accident. Tragically, it was the one you planned. A duke needed his brother dead before inheritance laws changed. A bishop required a rival theologian silenced permanently. Every successful elimination led to 3 new requests. Each new client brought their own network of potential targets. You built a reputation for reliability worth more than gold. When you accepted a contract, the target died within a month. No exceptions, no failures, no witnesses left alive to complicate matters. Your success rate attracted premium clients who paid premium prices for guaranteed results. Your most lucrative contract came from an unexpected source. The Queen herself approached you during evening prayers, kneeling beside you in the chapel as if seeking spiritual guidance. She whispered a single name, the king's favorite mistress, then slipped a purse containing 500 gold pieces into your prayer book. The irony wasn't lost on you. The most powerful woman in France needed to hire a servant to eliminate a rival she couldn't touch through conventional means. Power has limitations. Sometimes the most direct solution requires the most indirect methods. You accepted the contract, knowing it would be your most dangerous assignment yet. Killing a royal mistress required perfect execution and absolute secrecy. One mistake would mean not just your death, but exposure of every client you'd ever served. Congratulations! You've been promoted again. This time from servant to shadow. Same clothes, infinitely more danger. The problem with Versailles is you've made yourself indispensable to people who can afford to be ruthless. Your clients need you silent. The king needs you dead. There's no middle ground where you survive this. You've spent 2 years building a network of people who all have the same solution to their problem. Eliminate you before you eliminate them. Success in the poison business meant understanding that every contract was a gamble. You bet your life against your skill, your secrecy against their investigation, your reputation against their suspicion. So far, you'd won every bet. But the house always wins eventually. And when it does, all your clients become witnesses. You just didn't know your signature move was about to become your confession. Every rose you'd etched into a vial, every careful detail that proved your artistry, was a breadcrumb leading straight back to you. 2 years of flawless work, 2 years of never getting caught, 2 years of believing you'd cracked the code. And then, one tiny mistake changed everything. The Queen's contract went perfectly. The King's mistress died from apparent food poisoning after eating strawberries dusted with your mercury compound. She died peacefully in her sleep. Peacefully because the mercury made sure of it. Clean, professional, untraceable. Except you left your signature, not intentionally, out of habit. Every glass vial you used bore a tiny etched rose on the bottom, your personal mark, a way of signing your work. It never mattered when victims died alone in their chambers with no one examining the scene. For years, you prided yourself on your signature touch. Turns out, the police love a consistent brand too. The King's physician found the vial tucked behind the mistress's jewellery box. He held it up to the light and saw the rose. Then he remembered the Duke of Orleans' chamber had contained a similar vial. So had the Countess of Maintenon's and the bishop's. 4 roses, 4 deaths, 4 separate crime scenes, suddenly connected by a single mark. Your signature wasn't art anymore. It was evidence. It was a confession written in glass, waiting to be read. The investigation moved fast once they had physical evidence. Palace guards tore apart your laboratory and found everything. The poison garden, the grinding equipment, the detailed records you'd kept of every contract and every method. You'd documented your work like a scholar, noting which substances worked best for different targets, which delivery methods raised the least suspicion. Your meticulous notes became the prosecution's favourite exhibit. They arrested you during morning mass. As you knelt, pretending to pray, guards surrounded you from every direction. The irony was perfect, captured in the same chapel where you'd killed so many, kneeling before the same altar you'd used as a murder weapon. The priest looked genuinely shocked. In that moment, he understood. All those donations, all those confessions where you'd said nothing. You'd been using his chapel as your laboratory the entire time, still writing Act of God in his head, probably. The interrogation lasted 3 days. They used methods you recognized from your own work. Slow, methodical, designed to break resistance gradually. They didn't need to torture you for information. Your records provided everything. But they tortured you anyway. Not for information, for public confession. The king needed acknowledgement of your crimes to justify the executions that would follow. Remember those 2 categories? Clients and witnesses. The king just converted your entire client list into his witness list. Your confession implicated half the noble families at Versailles, revealing an assassination network reaching into the highest levels of French society. Your trial became the season's entertainment. Nobles who once whispered your name in fear now attended your proceedings like theatre. They watched with fascination as you described your methods in clinical detail. Some took notes. The execution sent a message. Public, brutal, tailored to your crimes. They burned you alive, but not before forcing you to drink wine laced with your own poison. You died twice. Once from mercury coursing through your veins. Once from flames consuming your body. You understand the market value of murder. A simple death cost 50 gold pieces. A timed political assassination cost 100. Divine judgment cost 200. Watching the king's poisoner drink his own work and burn in front of Versailles. Turns out, some things really are priceless. The crowd cheered as you burned. The same nobles who paid for your services applauded your destruction. Sound familiar? You watched our Templar video, circled the same 5 points, rolled your eyes. A few complained in the comments, but you still subscribed. That isn't loyalty, that's craving. And just like the Golden Arches, we'll keep serving it as long as you keep coming back. Your death meant their secrets died with you. They hoped. This time, the record doesn't say Act of God. It says your full name. You're gone. The fear isn't. At a place like Versailles, court poisoner isn't a person. It's just a job opening. A nervous young apothecary from Lyon is already descending the stairs to your old laboratory. Same basement, same bottles, same work. He doesn't know your name yet. In 6 months, no one will remember it. In a year, they'll whisper his name in the same shadowed gardens where they once whispered yours. The machine doesn't mourn, it just hires. You're listening to this story already knowing how it ends. You watched a poisoner get poisoned. The irony is so obvious, the animator probably drew it twice to make sure you got it. If you want the brutal truth about what happened when medieval justice finally caught up with its own executioners, watch your life as a medieval executioner.